All right, today we're going to tackle something so fundamental to our lives. It's almost like questioning the air we breathe. We're talking about money. We're going to explore why this tool we all use every day might be heading for obsolescence, and it's all because of the incredible rise of AI.
So let's just start with this one big idea. What if money isn't some law of nature? What if it's completely artificial? Not just the paper and coins, but the whole concept. What if it's just a technology we invented, a technology that we might be about to outgrow?
Get this, 99%. For 99% of human history, our species survived, grew, and built societies entirely without money. I mean, when you look at it that way, it's a brand new invention, a tiny blip on the timeline.
So that begs the question, right? How in the world did we manage for all that time? Let's dive into that world without money and see how we actually thrive based on something totally different: cooperation.
I mean, for the vast majority of our existence, nearly 300,000 years, we were hunter-gatherers. Everything was based on sharing. Then, after we figured out agriculture, we spent thousands more years in economies built on gifts and favors. The very first coins don't even show up until around 650 BC. It really puts our whole modern system in perspective, doesn't it?
And, before those coins, people used all sorts of things as currency, whatever was common and held its value. We're talking about cattle, grain, beautiful cowrie shells, even salt. And here's a fun one. The word salary actually comes from the Latin word for salt, sal, because Roman soldiers used to get part of their pay in salt.
So here's the really big takeaway. The systems that got us through most of our history weren't about transactions. They were built on things like sharing, doing favors for each other, and just good old-fashioned community trust. Money didn't create society. Society eventually created money because it needed a new kind of tool.
Okay, so that leads to the obvious next question. If we were doing just fine without it, why bother inventing it at all? Well, it turns out money was designed to solve one very specific problem: scarcity.
You see, the old way of doing things, barter, had this huge, clunky problem. Economists call it the double coincidence of wants. It just means I have to find someone who has what I want, who also happens to want what I have. Imagine you're a baker who needs shoes. You have to find a shoemaker who is hungry for bread right now. It's a nightmare. Money solves that. It's a technology that acts as a go-between and makes trade on a large scale possible.
And that brings us to this really simple but powerful definition. Money is just a tool. It's a piece of tech we made up to organize ourselves, make trading easier, and, most importantly, to hand out scarce resources. Now, you got to remember that word, scarce. It is the absolute key to this whole conversation.
And this is where the story takes a massive science fiction turn. We've just established that money is our tool for dealing with scarcity. So what happens when a brand new technology shows up that could potentially end scarcity? And yeah, we are absolutely talking about AI.
Just listen to this prediction. In the next decade, AI and robots could be able to do any job, all jobs, with no humans needed. Now, if that even comes close to happening, our entire economic model, the one where we trade our labor for money to buy scarce things, it just completely falls apart.
So let's go back to that definition. Money is a tool to allocate scarce resources. But what happens when AI and automation make those resources not scarce anymore? When essentials become abundant? The tool's primary function, its entire reason for being, just vanishes.
Let's just walk through that chain reaction. If AI can produce all our essential goods, we're talking food, housing, energy, abundantly, and without human labor, then boom, those goods aren't scarce. Our labor is no longer something we exchange for income. Production doesn't need wages, and suddenly, our actual survival is no longer tied to earning money. The whole system just becomes redundant.
Look, this isn't just some small adjustment. It's a total collapse of the old paradigm. So what on earth comes next? Let's explore three really different futures. Three possible societies that could emerge in a world where the old economic rules are completely broken. So here's a quick look at the three main paths we could go down. First, you've got a true post-scarcity world where money is basically meaningless. Second, a pretty dystopian idea, a controlled economy where money is kept around just for social control. And third, a kind of hybrid system where all the basics are free, but you still need money for luxuries. Let's start with that first one, the post-scarcity society. This is basically the Star Trek future, right? Right now, your survival depends on your income.
In this future, it depends on your access to these amazing automated systems. Money becomes a quaint historical artifact, and people are free to pursue art, science, and exploration instead of just trying to make rent.
Now, for a much darker possibility, the controlled AI economy. In this world, we have the ability to make everything abundant and free. But we don't. The powers that be, governments, corporations, they keep money around not because it's needed, but because it's a tool for control. It becomes an artificial gatekeeper to maintain power and hierarchy.
And the third path is this hybrid system, which might feel like the most realistic one. The best analogy is the internet today. A ton of services are free, but if you want the premium experience, you've got to pay. In this future, that model is applied to society itself. Your basic needs are met, but money still exists for luxury goods, which raises a pretty huge question. Who gets to decide what's a necessity and what's a luxury?
And so all of this leaves us right here, facing maybe the most important question of our century. Money was the tool we invented for a world defined by scarcity. If AI delivers a world of true abundance, that tool becomes a relic. So the question for all of us is, what do we build in its place? What kind of world do we even want to create when the old limits just don't apply anymore?